Hi everybody, welcome to the CGH Health Foundation's March Growing Healthier program. As you know, we had to cancel our on-site program because of this coronavirus, and we can't bring you all to the Ryberg. We're trying to keep our community as healthy and safe as possible, but I thought we could still do our program, and so welcome to my kitchen. I have been at home since last Tuesday. I'm really missing my coworkers and everyone at the office and the hospital, but those people on the front line are going to keep us healthy, and so a shout out to the doctors and nurses, and not just the doctors and nurses, but our maintenance people who keep the place running, our environmental services people that are keeping the clean and sanitized for you, our marketing department that's keeping you informed about everything that's going on, and I hope I'm not forgetting anybody, the cafeteria who's still feeding us. They're all doing a great job. I have been at home since last Tuesday, like I said, and I have been doing a lot of cooking, and our program this month was about cooking and how important it is to cook for yourself at home, and a lot of people are doing more of that as we're stuck at home. I know I've been doing a lot more cooking since I've been home. So cooking for ourselves at home, Michael Pollan said that it's probably one of the best things that we can do for our health, and I have to agree with that. Just in 2010, so I'm sure it has gone even further now, the meals that we eat out from restaurants and takeaway, etc., the money that we spend on those eclipsed the money that we're spending on groceries and eating at home. And oddly enough, the path, if you look at it, the trajectory is very similar to the increase in our rates of obesity. I'm not putting the blame on the restaurant industry, but the truth is that the more that we eat out, the more calories we're probably consuming. Our portion sizes are huge. And cooking for yourselves at home gives you a little bit more control over that. The shirt says, I cook and I know things. That's what I do. And I always thought I knew a lot about cooking. I learned from my grandma, who was actually worked at CGH in the dietary department for a time. And I cook a lot. I love to feed people. And my husband also does some cooking, and the reason that this t-shirt is funny is, like I said, I used to think I knew everything about cooking, and he likes to cook, as I said, but he doesn't do it the way I do it, the way I think it should be done. And one of the things that we disagree on is how to cook pasta. Because he just puts the pasta in the water in the pot and then brings it to a boil, and I always tell him that's the wrong way to do it. And then, lo and behold, I found these recipes where that's what you do, these one-pot pasta meals. And so I'm going to do a little bit of cooking this morning just to show you how easy it is. And the recipe I chose is called a one-pot taco pasta. And I'm going to do more talking about cooking, but I want to get this started just so you can see again how easy it is to do this. So the ingredients for this one-pot taco pasta, they all go in at the same time. And so what I have 3 cups of dry pasta, and I'm using a shell pasta. It's taco pasta, so I thought I would use shells. And so those go in. And this is just the very inexpensive pasta that I got at one of our local grocery stores. And that is 3 cups worth that went into the pot. The next thing that's going into the pot are the vegetables. And what I have here is 2 bell peppers chopped. I have a green one and a red one in there. I've got about 5 large Roma tomatoes and about half an onion. And again, that's just all going right in the pot. You can hear there's a little bit of sizzle going on there. The next thing I'm going to put in are some black beans. I cook my own black beans from scratch, from dry. This would be a little, probably about a can's worth or more. I use 2 cups, and I think a can is about 1.5 cups. So that's going to go in. Next, I'm putting in about 4 cups of a vegetable stock. And again, you can get this at the grocery store. try to buy the lowest sodium one that you can. I make my own vegetable stock. I just save up all the little scraps from when I'm cooking of the onion and the celery and the carrots. And I have a quart-sized container that I keep in the freezer, and every time I cook something I put those onions pieces and the trimmings from the carrots and everything into that thing, and when I have a full container I put it on top of the stove or in my Instant Pot, fill it up with water, and on the Instant Pot I turn it to soup or stew and let it cook. I also add a bay leaf, some peppercorns, a little bit of salt, not very much salt. That's probably about it. And or if you put it on top of the stove, you want to cook it for like 3 or 4 hours. In the Instant Pot it takes about an hour. So that's my own vegetable stock, but again, you can use a packaged stock. And so everything is in there except the taco seasoning, and I just have one package of taco seasoning. And again, if you want to put together your own seasoning, there's some great recipes out there, and a lot of times I make my own taco seasoning. And so this is all in here. I'm going to give it a quick stir to get the seasoning well distributed. And let me see. I think I might need a little more water. So give me a second. We'll put some more water in there. So I'm going to add about 2 cups more of water because I want to have everything submerged. And there you go. Everything went in the pot at the same time, and it'll take maybe 5 or 10 minutes to bring to a boil, and then we're going to let it boil for another 10 to 12 minutes and test the pasta and see how it goes. So wasn't that easy? So while that's cooking, let's talk about some other really great reasons why you should be cooking for yourself. One of them, and again I already kind of talked about this, is that you will eat healthier. People who prepare meals at home tend to eat more vegetables. They tend to eat less sodium because restaurant meals are notoriously high in sodium. They tend to eat fewer calories because our portion sizes in restaurants are so large. And usually if we're preparing our own meals at home from scratch from fresh ingredients, we're going to be eating a lot healthier, and that's very important. The other thing about cooking your own meals at home is that you're going to know exactly what is in there. So for some people that's very important. If you have food allergies or something like that, then you control what goes in there. The other reason is that fast food restaurants, not just fast food restaurants, some other restaurants, they do not use the same recipes that you would use at home. If you look at a recipe for something that comes from one of our fast food restaurants, and so I'm going to read the ingredients and we'll see if you can guess what you think is in this. So the first ingredient is potatoes, and then canola oil, hydrogenated soybean oil, safflower oil, some natural flavoring, dextrose, sodium acid pyrophosphate, citric acid, dimethylpolysiloxane, and then these are have additional ingredients that are added during the cooking: canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, hydrogenated soybean oil with THBQ, I don't know what that is, citric acid, and dimethylpolysiloxane again, and salt. So that is a long list of ingredients, many of them with chemical names. And if you have not already guessed what that is, I will tell you, and that is the recipe for McDonald's French fries. So I don't know why in the UK, if you eat French fries at McDonald's, the recipe is potatoes, oil, and salt. But here in the United States, we add some chemicals to it. Some of them are preservatives, some of them are anti-foaming agents so that the oil doesn't foam over when it cooks. But I bet you didn't even know that those were all in those French fries that you were eating. I have another even longer example, and I can't pronounce all of that, but if you want to look that one up, look for the recipe for Kentucky Fried Chicken's mashed potatoes and gravy. The next reason that we really should be cooking more for ourselves, and that is because you will save money. So here's a great example with this taco pasta. Every ingredient in here added up together, and I didn't even use the full box of the pasta. I only used about half of the box of the pasta. Under $8 for all of those ingredients, and it makes about 4 servings. So this pasta meal right here is costing less than $2 per person for a serving of pasta. Chicken, say you're going to eat a chicken sandwich with an order of fries on the side. That same meal, if you bought it in a sit-down restaurant, might cost you $10 or $12. If you get it from a fast food restaurant, it's still going to cost you $6 or $7. If you made it for yourself at home, you would probably be paying less than $2 per person. So that is another great reason for us to cook our own meals at home. Another one, I think when people eat fast food, especially, one of the reasons that they say they do it is to save time, that I don't have time to cook. With just a little bit of planning, you actually can save time by cooking your own meals at home rather than going through the drive-through. When you think about it, a drive-through meal is still going to be, 15 or 20 minutes of your time, just driving to the place and sitting in line and waiting for your food to come out and then driving away. If you were to cook some meals on the weekend and throw them on in the freezer, some batch cooking, there are meals like sheet pan meals that you can just throw together and stick in the oven. I have an Instant Pot, and I can usually throw ingredients in there and have a meal in under an hour. But there are a lot of different ways that you can get meals ready and come home and eat quicker than it would take you really to drive through the drive-through. I think we really just go through the drive-through for the convenience of it. Another reason that we should be cooking more for ourselves at home is that your food tastes better when you cook it yourself. The meals that we get, the pre-made meals, convenience meals that we buy in the grocery store, the fast food meals, have a lot of added sugar and salt and fats, sometimes salt in particular. So the manufacturers of convenience foods and packaged foods, there's this phenomenon called warmed over food, and WOF for short. And we know that if we cook something at home like chili or soup and eat it the next day, a lot of times it tastes better the next day. But those convenience foods, those prepackaged foods, not really the same thing. If they cook something and then can it, and sometimes they can it and cook it in the can, they have to add the salt because it would taste off to us. And so they put a lot of salt in those foods, and that way it kind of covers up that warmed over food aftertaste. So the stuff you cook at home is going to be so much better. One great example, and I don't know if anybody has eaten these recently, I did a few years ago just because I was curious. I thought I'll grab a can of that. So I remember growing up, it was a big treat for us to have like SpaghettiOs or that kind of meal, that pasta meal in a can. So like I said, a few years ago, I bought a can of that and I tasted it, and it was so just bland and tasteless. And I guarantee you that this taco pasta that I'm putting in that I'm cooking right now is going to taste so much better than that canned SpaghettiOs and the foods like that. Another reason, this may be something you haven't thought of when it comes to reasons to cook for ourselves, and that is that it's better for our environment. So think about the foods that come out of a factory or come to you through the drive-through line. Think of all the various steps that have happened in getting that food to where it is, to when you consume it. It comes out of the field, it's transported to the factory, and a lot of resources are used there in breaking down the food and in processing it, and then in cooking it, and then in packaging it, and then maybe it's frozen after that. And then more transportation costs from the factory to the warehouse, and then more transportation costs from the warehouse to the place that it's sold, whether that be the fast food restaurant or in the grocery store, in the freezer aisle or the canned goods aisle. And then you're going to take that food that has already had all of those resources devoted to it, you're going to take it home and you're going to reheat it and use even more resources. And so cooking it ourselves at home, a trip to the grocery store or your garden or the farmer's market would be even better. And you taking it home and minimally processing it and cooking it yourself. I think how many steps are taken out of that. That means less electricity, less water usage, etc. So helpful for our environment as well. Another great reason I think for cooking at home is the benefit that it can have for kids, and this is really about teaching your kids to cook. Your kids, like we already said, the first thing the first reason I talked about was that you're going to be healthier. So your kids are going to eat healthier if they're eating home cooked food. They're also going to be smarter. And I'm not just talking about the benefit of the nutrition, but cooking requires a lot of skills and knowledge. Think about it. Reading, first of all, being able to read a recipe, planning and organizing, putting all your ingredients together. Do I have enough of this? Do I have enough of that? Math, obviously, lots of math and fractions in particular. And if I double a recipe or if I need a half a cup plus a quarter cup to make 3/4 cup, and using the measuring cups, etc. Those are all things that are going to be great for kids. And also just the time spent in relaying the information to you. Another great reason I think for cooking meals at home, especially cooking meals together as a family, is just that fellowship, that sense of family history, and it can have something to do with your culture, your ethnicity, and sharing the story of your family with your kids and loved ones. I have a great story that has to do with my grandmother. So I have two grandmothers that were pretty good cooks. One of them was on the farm and had to feed 4 boys and a girl, and she was just a very utilitarian cook, plain meat and potatoes thing. And then I have another grandmother, my other grandmother, who worked at various restaurants in the area, and she's the one that I said worked for the hospital in dietary for a time. And my grandmother was a very good cook. I probably ate things growing up that many kids never would have tried. My grandfather came from Germany and his family to his father was a Lutheran minister, and he came to lead the Manual Lutheran Church in Rock Falls. And when he died, my great grandmother lived with my grandparents, and so she was living until I was 3 or 4 years old. And that is my earliest memory. I think the earliest memory that I have is standing at a kitchen table with my great grandmother behind me, and we were rolling out dough. And so my grandmother was, like I said, was a great cook. And one of the things that she made was a pot roast, and it was a German style pot roast, kind of a sweet and sour kind of a flavor to it. And I ate that maybe almost every Sunday growing up. And I would ask my grandma for the recipe, and she never gave me the recipe. And many years later, when she was living on her own, and I would visit her occasionally, and we both loved to read too, and we would trade books. And one day she handed me a book, and it was this Time Reader's Book of Recipes. This is it. And I said, "Oh, well, thanks, Grandma." She gave it to me, and I took it home and put it on a shelf. I didn't even look inside. And it wasn't until a few years later, after she had passed, that I started to page through the book. And lo and behold, in the middle of the book, on the pot roast page, is a recipe card with her recipe for her pot roast. So she's kind of sneaky. She snuck it in there on me. But anyway, this is something I treasure. And you probably have recipes food traditions that have been handed down through your family that you feel the same way about. So that's a very special memory for me. And it's a great way to make memories with your family. Another thing that I think holds us back from cooking sometimes is that we think it's got to be hard. We think it's got to be complicated recipes, and I'm going to make sauce and stuff like that. I hope that this example of the taco pasta recipe showed you just how easy it can be. Other examples of this, sheet pan suppers. That's another one of my favorite kinds of easy recipes that really doesn't require any skill. A sheet pan supper is basically just taking your big cookie sheet and some kind of protein. It can be anything. It can be salmon fillets, it could be pork chops, it could be chicken breasts, it could be hamburger patties, and putting the protein in the middle, and then along the sides you put some veggies, and anything, lots of vegetables roast really well. The root vegetables like carrots and potatoes and turnips, but even broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, things like that. So cutting those up and then putting them alongside the sheet pan and then sticking it in the oven, 350 to 375 degrees. It's probably going to take about 25 or 30 minutes, and everything is going to be cooked really well. So that's one very easy example. Another thing that I like, if you are on Facebook or the internet, is to look up the tasty videos. And those are tiny little videos, usually 3, 4, 5 minutes long, that give you a little tutorial about putting the food together. Very, very simple kinds of recipes. So cooking is not hard. It's basically just applying heat to raw ingredients. And you can find tons of very easy recipes and do it that way. Another thing that I like to think of when it comes to cooking is kind of more mind and body reasons, other than just nourishing yourself or feeding yourself. There are things that happen to us, brain connections that are well supported by cooking for ourselves. For me, creativity is a big part of it. I love to cook, but most of all, I like to cook for other people. So one example of this is that I have a group of friends from grade school. They met the first one in the 4th grade, and these friends of mine I invite to my home every year on Christmas Eve. And so I cook a brunch for them on Christmas Eve, and we have a different theme every year. And so one year it might be snowmen for the theme, or one year it was the Partridge Family, because we're all big fans of the Partridge Family. But whatever the theme is, I put together a menu, and sometimes I work on it all year long. And in fact, this year I said, well, I don't have any ideas for next year, and I got one from one of my friends, so I'm not going to spill the beans because it's still going to be a surprise for them. But creativity is a big part of it for me. I don't paint, and my husband says I can't sing, so cooking is a kind of a creative outlet. And I hope we'll have some pictures here that show you some of the ones that I'm real proud of. One picture is going to be of a bowl of soup that is red on one side and green on the other, and that's a roasted red pepper soup on one side and a broccoli and spinach soup on the other that are just poured into the bowl. I used two 1-cup measures with soup in each one and just poured it in the different sides of the bowl, and it came together. And that bowl of soup went with my tree theme, so you can see my little napkin folded like a tree there. There's another picture that looks like a cake, right, with the berries on top of it. And that picture is actually, it is a cake. It's a birthday cake for a friend of mine who is gluten-free and doesn't eat any sugar either. And so under that frosting that you see, which is really just whipped coconut milk, is just a big chunk of watermelon. And so I had to carve the watermelon out and frost it with the whipped cream, and then put the berries on top and the nuts on the side. And I was really happy with the results of that one. And the other picture is another one of my Christmas Eve themed meals. And it is a snowman. You can see the snowman. That was the theme that year. But what that is, it's a Swedish sandwich called a smorgasstrata. And it is a layered sandwich. And so there's 2 round loaves of bread that I have cut, sliced sideways, and one of them has tuna salad and one of them has egg salad in it, and then it's frosted with a mayonnaise and then decorated. And if you go on the internet and look for those smorgasstratas, you will find some just amazingly creative ones. Mine was a very simple one, but I love doing that kind of thing. That's where the creativity comes in. Another mind and body reason is just the focus that's required for cooking, and part of that focus also leads to kind of a stress relief for me. And so when you're cooking, you're using sharp knives and heat, etc. So you have to be paying attention. And I find that it's hard to cook and also worry about something at the same time. So for me, that mindfulness that it takes to prepare a meal kind of takes my mind off of troubles and that kind of thing too. And that's the more the stress relief part of it. Another mind-body reason for doing your own cooking is just the physical activity itself. So if you are getting your meal through the drive-through window, sitting in your car, driving there, sitting again on your butt, probably eating your meal on your butt, there's not a whole lot of physical activity going around there. So I don't think that you can discount that making your own meals does require you to be on your feet, moving, using your arms and muscles, etc. So that's another mind and body kind of reason for it. So those are all of the reasons that I have for thinking that it's better that if we prepare more of our meals ourselves. I think the only other thing I want to share with you, so if you are interested in doing a little bit more of this, here's a great time to do it. If you're home alone with the kids, of course, start looking up some of those old family recipes or some new recipes that you'd like to try together. Great way to pass some time if you're all locked in the house together, and do a bit more cooking for yourself. I have some favorite resources for recipes, and I thought I would share some of these with you. First of all, sometimes I just get recipes off of the package labels. You go into the store and you buy an ingredient that looks kind of interesting. For me, it's grains usually. If I buy a bag of farro or quinoa, sometimes there'll be recipes right in the package label. Cookbooks, absolutely. I should show you, I have a huge store of cookbooks and things. Websites are probably where I get 90% of my recipes these days. And I have a great little tip for an app that you can use to store your recipes. But here are some of my favorite resources for recipes. I think the top one that is for me is called allrecipes.com. And I do love that website for several reasons. It has a recipe box, so you can save all your favorites there. That's not uncommon with these recipe websites. My favorite feature of the All Recipes website is a search by ingredient. And this led me to discover some of my favorite flavor combinations. But what you can do is, say you go to the pantry and I have, so I'll give you the example of how I discovered this. Go to the pantry and I had a can of black beans and I had sweet potatoes. I had some tortilla shells, some whole wheat flour tortillas on hand. And I thought, well, what can you do with black beans and sweet potatoes? And so I looked, and there were several recipes for enchiladas and quesadillas, burritos that combined black bean and sweet potato with a southwestern seasoning, like a taco seasoning. And that is an awesome combination. So that's why I love that feature. Sometimes you have odd ingredients, you don't know how to put them together. It gives you some great ideas. There are also some videos there. There's a rating system. It's again one of my favorite features on any kind of recipe website is the rating system, so I can see, you know, maybe how many people have made it and what they thought of it. And then also read the comments, and people made suggestions about substitutions, etc. So that works out really well. Eatingwell.com, that's another great one, especially for family meals. Lots of healthy ones. If you are more on the plant-based side, which I am, I've been getting recipes from Forks Over Knives is a good one. The Vegan 8, one of my favorite ones. Drina Burton, and lately one called Monkey and Me Kitchen Adventures, which every recipe that I've tried of theirs has been awesome. And then if you're just looking for specific ingredients, there are websites that focus on beans. There are websites that focus on grains. The Bean Institute is like a Bean Growers Association. They have tons of bean recipes out there. The Whole Grain Council, again, and there are a lot of them. If you want to look for really traditional kinds of foods, then oldways.com, that focuses on kind of ancient or very traditional kinds of cooking is a place. And of course, Facebook, Pinterest, all of those are great recipe sources too. Just find a source that fits you, that fits your lifestyle. Another option here, so maybe you just hate the idea of shopping for ingredients and bringing them home and chopping them up, etc. There are lots of services these days that will kind of do the prep for you. So you're still getting the benefit of a home prepared meal, but not having to do, you know, basically all the shopping and prepping. And I don't have a lot of experience with any of these because, like I said, I like to cook, so I haven't used any of these. But I have some relatives and friends who have tried some of them. My nephew and his wife use Blue Apron. So this is a service where you can go online and go through their options, and you choose, you know, what meals you want. The prep work is done for you. They send the box to your house then, and you put everything in your fridge, and when it comes to cook, you take out the ingredients for that meal and throw it all together. And it is going to be a bit more expensive than buying all of your own ingredients at the grocery store, probably. From scratch, but if you have the budget and you still want to eat fresh meals, it's an option. And my nephew said actually that he felt that they saved some money, and it wasn't as expensive as he thought, because for one thing, you know, sometimes if you need a spice for a certain dish, and you go out, you can spend $7 or $8 for a jar of some spices. With this service, you just get enough for what you need, and you don't have extra stuff stored. Other ingredients can be like that too. Other ones that, just to give you an idea, if you want to check them out, HelloFresh is one. Purple Carrot is a plant-based one. Plated is another plant-based one. Home Chef, Sunbasket. One that I heard, if you are interested in plant-based eating, one that I have read very good things about is called Mama Says, and that's Mama and then S-E-Z-Z. And that one I'm thinking about trying, and the reason I'm thinking about it is that their focus is very much on the sustainability, etc. One thing I don't like about the meal services is the packaging. You know, I'm going to get that box and then packages, etc. I know the Mama Says allows you to kind of put everything back in the box and set it out, and they'll take it back and kind of recycle it. So that one sounded very interesting to me. And actually locally here in Sterling, we do have, and not just in Sterling, I know that there's maybe one in Dixon too, but we have a local business called Food Fitness U that does a plant-based meal prep as well. And so look for them on Facebook and on the internet, and that would be another local option that would save some of that shipping, etc. So that is my program for this month. Next month, if all goes well, Conscious Sitter is going to be talking about gut health, and watch our Facebook posts, etc. Like I said, there's a lot of I don't want to say confusion, but we just don't know where things are going over the next few weeks, whether we'll be back in our business or not. And so keep an eye on our Facebook posts and our website, a calendar on our website, to find out if we get back to our normal schedule. And in the meantime, my pasta has been cooking away here. Give it a stir. It is almost there. So once it comes to a boil, then only takes about the 10 or 12 minutes after that. And this is so beautiful. I'll let you see what it looks like. Suggestions for serving this would be to top it with maybe some green onions. I got a little sprinkle of green onions here. Another thing you could top it with would be some avocado. So I want to show you this great trick. So speaking of green onions and avocado, one thing that I do, and especially if we're not going to be able to get out to the store quite as much, anytime you cut the top off a green onion, and you can actually cut it down to so they're only about 2 inches tall, what I do then is I stick the green onion in a jar with water in it, and I put it on my countertop in front of the window, and the greens will regenerate. Sometimes a couple of times. And so anytime you need some green onion, you just cut off what you need from the top, and then it grows up a little bit. So that's kind of a cool trick. Like I said, we're stuck inside, might not get to the store much, but you would always have green onions available. Another thing, so for avocados, so this is something kind of fun that I discovered recently. Most avocados are too big for one serving. And yes, you could eat the whole thing, but a whole avocado is sometimes almost 300 calories. So I never eat like a whole avocado at one time, or at least none of this size. But I read this trick. I've tried everything, rub lemon on it, put it in a plastic Ziploc, and I suck the air out and put it in the fridge. It doesn't matter. After a day or so, it gets brown on the side. So I'm going to top my taco pasta with a little bit of avocado here, and then I'm going to tell you what I did with the other half of the avocado. So I just cross-hatched that in the shell and used a spoon to scoop it up. And so there is my one-pot taco pasta. It's beautiful, and I spilled some, but that's okay. I'm in my own kitchen. I'll clean it up. So here's the trick about saving an avocado. I tried this week, and it worked great. So take your avocado and put it face down in a little container and add some water, and the water keeps the air from getting to the avocado and oxidizing it. Little tips, things that I've learned and pass on to you. That's my program. Thank you for watching.